Well, look, I think part of it too is he's obviously not gotten over this thing about being fired from Metallica. So he wanted to do to somebody else what he felt they did to him, which is kick him out, and then someone else played his guitar parts. So let's kick Junior out, and then we'll have someone else play his bass parts. And to me, I'm like, I don't care. I already fucking helped put the record together. I played on the record. I got paid to be on the record. So, hey, if you want to have someone else playing it, whatever, you know?
Hello, welcome to another episode of 2020. My name is Cory Peza. I'm here, as always, with Siobhán and Ben, and we have exhausted our coffee because we're up a bit earlier for this one compared to most.
Coffee.
Yeah, we didn't even need coffee because David Ellefson was on fire this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are, whatever time you're listening. He had so many things to say. I mean, I don't even know how to summarize this episode in one sentence. I mean, a lot of the questions that you may have about what is going on with David Ellefson, Dave Mustaine, any of the stories from the past, we really cover it all in this episode.
The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by David Ellefson. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Benny Goodman. I am here with my compatriots, my cohorts, my bandmates in Lost Symphony, because our guest today actually was on a bunch of Lost Symphony records. If you haven't heard his playing with us, I guarantee you've heard his playing. He's one of the greatest bassists, one of the greatest business people in music, because this guy, I am tired of reading headlines, not only from a certain dude, but also of all the things he's doing, because it's tiresome how much you're doing. But one of my legends that it's on my wall, and I say my legend because he lives in my fantasy world of rock and roll and heavy metal, David Ellefson!
Woo!
Hey, how are you?
Good. Welcome back. And I know it's early where you are. It feels early for us here on the East Coast.
I know. It's like 9 a.m. I'm like, wow, this is way before rock and roll hours, but we're good.
Yeah,
we're
I feel the same way, and it's noon here, so.
Right. Nice and fresh for a good conversation.
Well, we have some of this right here.
That's right.
Ready to go.
Brought to you by Ellefson Coffee Company.
Right.
Shameless plug. Yeah, exactly. This
it's great. The branding
Which is, by
awesome.
the way, delicious, because David, when he came down to be on Lost Symphony, which is our band together. If you haven't heard him on, for example, No Exit with Jeff Loomis. So if you guys are like, what's David doing? Well, first off, I mean, if you don't know what he's doing, then you clearly don't have an internet connection. But one of the things he did with us was with Jimmy Bell from Autograph. He did a song with Jeff Loomis. We actually did a Chopin song together with Lost Symphony. But before we get into all the crazy stuff that you're doing, because there's no shortage, I just want to address the fact that the internet is assaulting me, in particular Blabbermouth and Metal Injection and all the places that I read religiously, because I love those places. It seems as is a certain bandmate, and I'll just call him Dave Mustaine, has a lot to say about a lot of things. And I'm just reading. So, okay, let me give you an example. I'm going down my feed, and it says June 24th, 2022. Dave Mustaine will forgive David Ellefson, but won't play music with him anymore. June 23rd, the day before. Megadeth's Dave Mustaine on David Ellefson. It was hard on me letting him go. And then my favorite, which was yesterday, Dave Mustaine accuses my friend David Ellefson of trying to poach Megadeth's song's Kingmaker. It was so pathetic. Can we just address that? What did you poach of this?
Look, I'll say
what's
to
wrong?
this one, first of all, he's not my bandmate. He's a former bandmate, right? And once, we parted ways, I moved on, and got on with the business at hand, which of course is music. And that's what I talk about. New music. Let the music do the talking, as our friend Joe Perry once said, right? Just get on with it, right? And, I don't like to get down in the mud because, that's great for headlines and clickbait, but it doesn't really do much for anything else. It's news of the moment, and that passes, and then something else comes across the news feed. So, look, I'm pretty well known because of music, and I'd rather be known for that than, fighting in tabloids and stuff like that. So, to me, it's like, why go down in the mud, and fight like a child, it's uncalled for. So, regarding Kingmaker, it's interesting. The record was done, or at least my bass parts were done. And Dave, at the end of the session, at the end of the day, he said to me, he said, "Hey man, if you want to go through the record, if there's anything you want to add or tweak or change, blah, 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 blah," giving me free license to do so. Because, you know, he had signed off on everything. Said, all right, no problem. So after he left, me and Chris Broderick and Johnny K sat in the studio, and I said, you know, I do have this one little bit, this little thing, and I showed it to them, and Broderick goes, dude, that would be really cool at the beginning of Kingmaker. I said, huh, interesting idea. And in my opinion, I think Kingmaker is probably the better song in the record, and just, you know, off the top for me. Johnny liked it. We sat, we worked on it, and put it together, and we were all excited. You know, Dave walks in the next day in a much different mood, grumpy, I might add, and not feeling so joyous as the night before. And I said, hey, man, I think maybe Johnny, either me or Johnny said, hey, I got something I want you to listen to that we worked on last night. And it was this kind of, you know, disapproving look. And Johnny plays it for him, all excited, you know. Because I think the three of us all heard the same thing. Hey, if you want to add anything, you want to work on anything, please do. Well, Dave didn't seem to maybe remember that conversation. And so what he walked into was, why the hell are you messing with my song? And I think he pulled Broderick aside and said, don't you dare add David Ellefson stuff to my songs. And, you know, and that started, we tested that little theory. I remember when I first came back to the band in 2010, we'd done a year of Rust in Peace. We had about 10 weeks to write the 13 record, the record to become 13. And I said, well, look, we're all going to be at NAMM in Anaheim. Why don't we just go down to Vic's garage, which is down in kind of by San Diego, Fallbrook area, north of San Diego. I said, why don't we just get in a room and fire some ideas and just see where we're at with everything, you know? And I swear to God, the first day we were working, you know, it took a couple of days because we were listening to stuff. Dave wanted to listen to everybody's ideas. And he acknowledged everybody had a couple things that he liked. And so we get in a room, guitars on, saddle up, and we start playing on something. And keep in mind, I hadn't been in this environment for almost 10 years now, right? Because this is, 2011. Last time we'd worked on a record together was World Needs a Hero in 2001. Yeah, so literally 10 years. So, and I've been working with all kinds of other people where it's like, hey, killer idea. How about this? Oh man, how about that? You know, collaborative, right? You're having musical conversation in the room. So, you know, and knowing how things have been in the past, Dave will start with something, bring an idea in, and maybe someone says, hey, that's cool. How about we add this little bit here? Or maybe that riff goes with this riff. No. And so I said, hey, I got something that might go with that. Dave immediately took his guitar off, walked in the office. I looked at Sean Drover, and Sean and Chris are just shaking their head. I said, what the hell is that all about? He goes, dude, trust me, the days of collaborating are long gone. Like that Megadeth that you were in, that's way over. So in the office, and Dave he was furious, but yet, you know, we didn't want our newfound friendship to deteriorate. So I said, what's the deal? And he said, don't try to put your ideas into my songs. I said, no problem. I said, all good. Just today's day one. I said, no worries, you know. And that was the last we ever jammed together. Everything after that, on every other Megadeth record after that, was just Dave writing the songs, doing his thing. Now that was different on this current record in 2019. You know, where we were in the room together. Actually, Dave was doing his thing, and then he was off taking care of his medical stuff at the time. And so Chris Reichstar said, look, to me and Kiko and Dirk, said, look, you guys are here. We need to write a record. We got beginnings of 5 songs, and we've supposed to be working on this record for a year and a half. Get in the room, like, let's go. So we saddled up and started ripping on stuff. In fact, I remember there's one song, might have even been that first one that they put out. I can't remember. It was one of them, but I remember we kind of modeled it after Black Friday. We just kind of took, you know, this sort of mellow intro into a full-on ripping part.
It's funny you say that, because I sat down with Paul Lorenzo, the drummer from Lost Symphony, and I played the new song, which, by the way, is incredible. I mean, it's really great. I love Megadeth, and he actually said, "This reminds me of Black Friday."
I think that's literally the first thing that he said. Modeled it.
It's the first thing he said.
Yeah. So we went down, and I remember Dave came in. Again, furious that we were working on stuff without him. And Rakestraw took the bullet and said, hey, it was my idea, man. These guys are here. You know, everybody's here to work. We need to get a record done. And to which he replied, I want to know who wrote what part where. And I could see it coming. He goes, I knew he was going to see what parts I wrote and take them out, which he did. He took all my parts off the record. and of which there were several. And, either rewrote them or, changed them just to make sure that I wouldn't have any writing on the record. And I just saw it coming. I rolled my eyes and just like, whatever, you know what I mean? So I was there for about 5 weeks, and then I went home for Father's Day, and I just never went back. I was like, whatever, I went back a year later to record bass, and and all of a sudden all my parts are off the record, all my kind of writing contributions. So we did work together on a track in 2021. It's funny, in 2021, a psychic called me up. A friend of mine, she did an interview for a Road and Track magazine. She calls me up, and one of the first things she says, she goes, "Yeah, Dave doesn't want you on the new album." I'm like, "Yeah, no shit."
You don't need a psychic for that, dude.
And I don't even need a psychic to tell me this. Yeah, right. I was like, it's pretty
Let
obvious.
me ask my magic 8-ball. Does Dave Mustaine want to relinquish control?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Pretty fucking
And it
unlikely.
was so funny what she said. She goes, he resents that he has to include you. He wants this album to be his story. He doesn't want you to be part of it. And I said, fair enough. I got 4 other records I'm working on. I mean, keep in mind, since this Megadeth record has been worked on in 5 years, I've put out 4 records, 2 books, and a movie. You know what I mean? So it's not like I've had lack of
And
content.
coffee, you have a new art
actually,
line
if you had
coming.
Lost Symphony, there's probably record number 5. So
There you go.
Well, we actually did 3 records with you, so you have 3
you're right.
records with us.
So now we're up to like 8 records. So, and it's, so it is what it is. And again, I just let everybody have their time and their space to do what they needed to do. But, I kind of saw events of last year as just the perfect opportunity to choose box office over brotherhood. And, so honestly, I look back on it now, I feel like I got kicked out of hell. So whatever,
Well, let me
a lot of
ask you
self-restraint,
this.
I was going to say. I mean, I don't know how I would feel if somebody was doing everything they could to eliminate any mark of my work on something.
No,
I mean,
it was abusive for sure. It was just abusive. It was unnecessary. And so, quite honestly, it's like, all right, I'd already moved a lot of my equipment out of the Megadeth storage locker after I recorded my bass parts, and Dave, even said he had a resentment toward me, that he couldn't let go. And I didn't know what it was, but clearly
I can tell you as a Megadeth fan, let me tell you outside.
Sure.
So you have these amazing players, Marty Friedman, you have Sean Drover, you have Chris Broderick, all these guys. But they aren't original Megadeth players. They're guys that can be erased and replaced. Kiko can play all those parts, all that stuff. But you can't take away the fact that David Ellefson was an original founding member of Megadeth. So when you came back, everyone was stoked about it. But it's like, now we have 2 of the original members of Kiss, let's say. But but he's the Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. So the idea that Peter or Ace would get any kind of credit upset him, which is why he probably didn't want to do any collaborative effort. Now these guys are playing on it. So I noticed in the press, he's like, there's 8 songs with Kiko, and there's a bunch of songs. Dirk was like, I had my ideas heard, and I almost feel like he let those guys do it specifically. So when he finally got his resentment out towards you, he could be, but look, I'm a collaborative guy. I have drum circles with Dirk. We're cool.
For sure.
David just didn't offer anything good to this band. And it's so clear that he just wanted to erase the fact that's his resentment, because you actually, no matter what people say, you can't take away the fact that you are our original part of Megadeth. And you're a part of the history that cannot be erased, regardless of what members and how great they are, he continues to go with. That's what his problem is. I can tell you from a mile away.
You should be a psychic. You should be a psychic.
I am.
Psychic,
You're psychic
psycho.
that you knew that.
Psychotherapy with Benny Goodman. I love it. All right, we'll go with that then.
No, I read his book. It all makes sense. I mean, I sensed that from word number 1.
I mean, look, when I came back, things were not going in the right direction. And like you said, 1 + 1 now equals 4, not 2. You know what I mean? They're just greater than some of its parts, and everybody was excited. And because look, we're bands, man. Bands aren't just about dudes making music. It's about you are our culture. You represent all that we are, what we grew up with. It's like when I see Cheap Trick or Kiss or any of my bands, I want to see those 4 guys or 5 guys, however many it was in whatever group it was, Aerosmith or whatever. It's like that to me represents, that represents a part of my past that was probably fun, cool. And when I see that splinter and fall apart, I mean, I watched it when we had to let Nick Menza go. His health was failing in a way that he wasn't playing as good at that time. And it was sad because I knew it's like, this is the end of an era. I mean, because once Peter, Chris, or Ace Frehley leave, dude, the franchise crumbles. And that's the same thing happened with us, you know?
Well, I got to tell you, I cannot believe how diplomatic and adulty you are with all your comments, because there's all these trolls online. There's all these people that everything that all these sites say, it's just Dave Mustaine beating you up, which I have to think, look, everyone knows him as this guy. And it's like, now he has a record that just came out. Right. Why not be that guy? And because he's running on this self-righteous platform of like, David is this pariah. So I'm offended by him. But I'll forgive him. All these different stages of death and dying.
He's fighting with himself. Like, there's no one, you know, he's in a game of tug of war with himself. I'm not fighting with him. I've just moved on. You know what I mean? It's like, I remember we talked about that after he jammed with Metallica on the Big Four. I said, how was that last night playing Am I Evil? And he goes, you know, those guys kicked me out of the band and they just moved on. And I held on to the resentment for all these years. It's like, same thing for me. It's like, why is he resenting me? It's like, he got rid of me. Supposedly the problem should have gone away if he got rid of me, but the problem still seems to be there. Maybe they fired the wrong guy.
Well, no, that's probably a lifelong problem at this point. You know, it's like eternal dissatisfaction. I mean, yeah.
Well, look, I think part of it too is he's obviously not gotten over this thing about being fired from Metallica. So he wanted to do to somebody else what he felt they did to him, which is kick him out, and then someone else played his guitar parts. So let's kick Junior out, and then we'll have someone else play his bass parts. And to me, I'm like, I don't care. I already fucking helped put the record together. I played on the record. I got paid to be on the record. So, hey, if you want someone else playing it, whatever, you know. Steely Dan would have like 5 guitar players come in to play solos, and you never knew which one was good. I'm reading the new Steve Lukather book, The Gospel According to Luke. You know, and they talk about it. It's like, we never knew whose solo was going to be on. Was it Larry Carlton, Jay Graydon? Like, who? We didn't know until it hit the radio. Like, oh, wait a minute, that's my solo. You know, so
yeah. Well, you're in Steely Dan. Everyone's Marty Friedman. It's like Skunk Baxter or Larry Carlton. Like, those guys are Jedi. So like, and the fact that they didn't need the credit. What a different environment that is. Yeah. But I have to think to myself that you are. I bless you, man. Like, and I don't mean that in a sarcastic way, but like all these things, this guy's doing all of this, and you're actually saying something hysterical to me, which is he's fighting with himself. The guy that goes, "Hello, me, meet the real me," and then even accuses you of not being the guy that he used to know. Maybe he's not the personality that he was.
Well, look, you know, the role only worked if I would be Junior and say yes, Dave, right? Because those are the only 2 words that work. You know, in the Emperor's New Clothing. Yes, Dave. You know what I mean? And as soon as you don't say that, and as soon as you have an opinion or, you know, try to be collaborative or, you know, look, the 90s were the period of the band that had the greatest output for a reason. First of all, we were very equally yoked as far as how we thought, how we looked. You know, there was a synergy about it, but it was also very collaborative. Nick Menza talked about it in his book, and Marty even talked about it in the Rust in Peace book, man. And it's like, you know, to be a band on demand for whatever we were writing, but then to ask for some participation and collaboration. You know, in Nashville, there's a thing called a third for a word. If you're in the room, you're getting paid for being part of the collaborative process. If I just come up with one word, Subway, you know, oh yeah, right, let's make the song about a Subway. You know what I mean? It's like I get a third of the publishing, right? So, you know, and it's not like in Kingmaker, I think I got 5%. So it's not like I got half the song. So, you know, it's like, it wasn't a big chunk of money, but somebody told me that they saw that we actually had a cue, which is like a song placement in that. Who are those 3 guys? Impractical Jokers.
Oh, yeah.
The irony that Kingmaker would ran up being Impractical Jokers. So, especially after the conversation this week. Right. You know, look, like Al Pacelli said, we ain't curing cancer here. You know, we're just making music. We're writing some songs. We're trying to play some music, make some people happy. It's like, it doesn't have to be World War III. At least it isn't for me. You know, that's not my thing. Maybe it is for others. Live and let live. You move on. And, you know, that's why, again, I don't, you don't, when your kid's having a temper tantrum, you don't fight with them. You just go, all right, yeah, fair enough. Try it out. You know what I mean? And then you move on.
Can you at least fact check something for me? Because I want to read something, because Marty Friedman is one of my biggest heroes. We had him on Lost Symphony. And for those that don't know, we did a tribute to our friend Ollie Herbert, and we actually reunited you with Marty Friedman on these tunes. So if people want to go back and hear, I guess, 50% of the Rust in Peace lineup, it exists on Lost Symphony Chapter 3. But there's one thing I read, because I remember the whole Risk period of Megadeth, and on Blabbermouth it says, quote, Dave Mustaine, one of the main reasons Marty Friedman left Megadeth was because of the solo in Bread Fan. Bread Fan, Metallica. Breadline. See, I conflated it. That was a song where Marty wanted to do the solo so badly, and he did. But when we got the song back, our management said, we don't like that solo. Marty was already gone, so I agreed to redo it. But I told them they'd have to tell Marty, and they didn't like his solo and wanted it and they didn't. Basically, they didn't tell Marty. There was the record. It was the onus of the record company to tell Marty. So when upon playback, Marty starts crying.
Oh, I remember because it's funny because I remember sitting there complimenting Marty, going, "Dude, that is a kick-ass solo," and he kind of was like, and he's like, "I didn't play that." I'm like,
"Oh God,
all right, Dave. Well, that's a really good solo. It kind of sounded like Marty. You know what I mean?" And that was the moment right there when that happened. Now look,
it's your fault.
Obviously, no one leaves a band over one solo. You know, honestly, for Marty, the ending had started back in '93 when a drug and alcohol issue within the band had happened. The tour was canceled. Japan, Budokan was canceled. You know, me and Marty had already gone over to Japan a few months earlier to do press and, take pictures outside of Budokan. I mean, to play Budokan is the holy grail, especially at that time, for guys like us. And when that was canceled, that Marty even said on Euthanasia, or maybe it's on Cryptic Writings, he goes, man, that the wind was really taken out of our sails. And we kind of got it back a little bit on Euthanasia. We went back over to Euthanasia for about 3 weeks and toured Japan at that time. But we never played Budokan. We never kind of hit that level again. As big as Megadeth, was and has been, that was the one for Marty. That was kind of the one. And I think when that went away and he realized he would never get that back, I think for him that was kind of I would say that was the beginning of the end for him. And he hung in there for a lot of years. And I mean, the Risk record, he was called in to write a lot of stuff. His name is on a lot of stuff. And, the truth of it is, I don't know how well he was compensated for it. I seem to remember seeing the publishing split on it. That's why I'm glad to see Kiko got his writing on this record, because, he does a lot. He does a lot from just a let's get this shit done kind of mentality, And again, I wasn't in the room for the last year, so I can't speak anymore to anything on the Megadeth record, to that, nor do I want to. But, these guys who are sort of the unsung sidemen, if you will, and Marty wasn't even a sideman. He was, very much a member of the group, but when they finally get their due, it's deserved, believe me, and my kind of deserved day came probably by about Countdown to Extinction, and even on Euthanasia. And, that was an era when we had come of age as a band. That lineup was working well together. We were making great music together. And, at some point, everybody needs to be brought in to be, not just told you're a member, but paid like a member and compensated and treated and all those things that go along with it. So, look, every band has its challenge. Every, great rock and roll bands, aren't these tepid, lukewarm personalities. They're feisty and fiery. And, you can just imagine what it is. It's not for most people, believe me. Most people could not have survived, the almost 40 years in the Yellow Submarine like I did. That's for damn sure, and as in any career band, you're going to go through a lot of stuff, man. It's like, your brothers fight, brothers love, they kiss, they make up, then they punch each other in the face and they hate each other. You know what I mean? It's what it is, So, so it is what it is. And so that's why it's like, I remember David Lee Roth always had that quote, don't sweat the small shit. And it's all small shit, it really is. And, when people start digging their heels in on stuff and I have to be right, and this is done, it's like, just fucking let it go, man. Move on, so at least that's been my approach. All right. I'm not Megadeth. All right. Well, I'll go work with this guy and make that record. Then I'll work with him and I'll make that record. And then I'll go tour and do this, you know. So
Start
to
a few
me,
companies.
yeah, just, you know, fucking move on, man. I mean, look, there's a reason it ended, you know. Obviously we're seeing it now, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, you know, it's life has moved on, you know. I'm a year down the road from all that. So in my opinion, you know, I'm not lamenting any of it. That record is 5 years old for me. So I'm way over that record, you know, so I'm on to, you know, the new one with Ellefson-Soto. I've got this thing I'm doing with the guys in Dieth. So to me, those are the new current, you know, when we get off this, I'm going to pick up the bass.
I want to hear it immediately, but I have one last question because this blew my mind and I need to know. There's a quote. David's got some moments of greatness where he goes from being a star to a superstar. Most notably is the riff I wrote for Peace Sells But Who's Buying. When I showed that to him, he embraced it and people fell in love with his playing and the rest is history. Is that a true story?
Well, look, did he come up with the riff? Yeah, I've never gone around and said, you know, look at this great riff I wrote. Again, that song was put together by the four of us in the room, 100%, right? And I now play with Chris Poland and Kings of Thrash, and I'm sure if you asked him, he would 100% agree. Because Dave remember we were driving down the road. I think we were going up. I would drive in my van and David ride shotgun, and you'd come up with ideas, and I'd be driving, and we'd talk about stuff. I think we were going up to pick up Gar Samuelson one day for rehearsal, and he goes, what do you think about Peace Sells But Who's Buying? He's like, sounds cool. What's it about? You know what I mean? And it was just kind of an idea that he had, and then he wrote it. You know, again, I've never been one to denounce or shoot down Dave's brilliance because he's got moments of absolute brilliance and quite honestly, simple genius. You know what I mean? It's simple. It's not like he's in a room, you know, with, you know, Paganini and he's off trip.
He's not Robert Fripp coming up with Fripptronics. He just like wakes up and he goes, oh, here's Wake Up Dead.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the beauty of it. You know what I mean? And that's why it's, you know, Eddie Van Halen, I think, was probably very gracious with it because, you know, as you see these interviews now and people would, you know, ask him, you know, where does this come from? He goes, it doesn't come from me. It comes from somewhere else. I'm just the channel. And he was very gracious about it. And as I've sat in the room with Dave and watched it, it's the same thing. You know, it channels through him. I don't know where the hell it comes from. Because I sit and go, like, I could have done that. Benny could have done that. Like, that's not that complicated, but it came through him. For whatever reason, you, my son, are the channel by which Wake Up Dead shall flow. You know, and that's really what it is. It's that simple. And I've been a witness to it, both high and sober. and it's like, there it is, you know? So that's his, you know, gift. I mean, look, and that's why everybody in that room, in that band, in any band is all just a piece of that puzzle that fits together. Hey, we need a guy to play the bass. We need a guy to hit the drums. We need a guy to do this. This guy over here is the channel by which the music flows. To which, you know, clearly Dave is, you know, is that and, you know, drives that engine of Megadeth. So I've been the first to acknowledge it, the first to be complimentary about it. At the same time, it's like, it isn't just the part, it's how the part's played. It's the charisma, in this case, of me playing it, of how I played it, the way that I was trained and grew up as a bass player and using a pick and learning to, you know, jump strings. Because it's a very complex riff in the sense that it was written, you know, really by a guitar player, not so much as approached as a bass. And a couple of things that's taught me is that, you know, because we're all musicians here, sometimes you'll write something on piano and move it to guitar. I just did it the other day. I wrote something on piano. I put my hands down on freaking B minor, which is just
the saddest of
very
keys.
Awkward.
Not quite
it's an
the
awkward
saddest of all
key.
keys.
Right. Yeah. And then I was going, I'm kind of got a little vocal melody. I don't know. So I picked up my guitar and I dropped it down to freaking B, you know, and all of a sudden I was in this drop tuning and all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, there it is. Now it sounds like Sabbath meets Sepultura. It's like, now nice. Now it's speaking to me, you know, but the initial hit came on the piano. So same thing. I'll play some on guitar and then I'll move it over to the bass. I'm like, oh, this is a freaking cool bass line, you know? So, you know, we find things in different places and then it's just where they ultimately land that sort of tells the story for the public to hear.
Well, you said something interesting because Miles Davis used to say it's only 20% the note that you're playing and 80% the attitude of the motherfucker playing it. And I think that's a serious thing, you know, as far as like, okay, 100%. Maybe you did do that.
It's why I told Dave he needed to be the singer in Megadeth. He stood out. We were waiting. We had like the 5th or 10th flaky fucking singer that didn't show up for rehearsal one night. On New Year's Eve of 1983, we're sitting at Curly Joe's studio, which is like an old brewery downtown LA. I guess it's now condos. I drive by it once in a while when I'm out in LA, and I look over and go, God, the fucking shit we did over there. But but so Dave just walks up, and I think it was like Chosen Ones or something, right? He had the piece of paper, he stuck it up on the freaking wall, or he stuck it on a mic stand, and he stood up there, and we ran through the tune, and he, sort of belted out the words as best he could in a phrasing that he felt worked over it. And I was like, dude, that was great. And he was like face red, like coughing, almost falling on the floor, hyperventilating because, trying to sing and play and not really being a singer, so to speak. And he said, really? I said, of course. I said, look, you're writing the shit. It's like, who else is going to know how to sing that like that? I've never heard any of this stuff sung because we never had a singer. Dave was always trying to teach these singers, like, okay, here's the phrasing. The song Set the World Afire. It was the first song Dave wrote after Metallica. It was called No Survivors. And I remember him sitting down trying to show people how to sing it. And no one would really grasp it because there are these guys walking in with their coiffed hair and their scarves, trying to be, looking like they're either in 707 Survivor or in half Aerosmith or something, right? And trying to teach them how to sing this new music we're inventing called basically to be dubbed thrash metal or something, but it's, we're basically inventing a new sound, and people are coming in just going, well, I just want to be Vince Neil or David Lee Roth or whatever else is happening on the Sunset Strip because I'm just following what they're doing. And here we are with Megadeth leading a whole new path, even amongst the big four. I mean, we were doing something very different from Metallica and Anthrax and Slayer. I mean, that's why we're the big four. Each one of us has a different sound. We're a different pillar that holds up the platform, And so finally, when Dave just got up and sang, it was like, dude, you do it. Of course, in his mind, he went, well, I guess that means we split the money between the four of us, always being kind of a jokester, so 4 instead of 5, right?
He has a point, though.
He does. He's a shrewd businessman. He even said it himself. Right. So but,
must be true.
But it is true. And plus it balances the stage. And I think for some way, I'd always been in 4-piece bands. I only played in one 5-piece band for a minute, had a keyboard player. So I've always been a 4-piece guy. Dave just came out of Metallica, which was 4-piece with the singer at center stage. And so, in a lot of ways, I think we both were in agreement. Like, yeah, it's easier, So, yeah, I mean, look, that, again, just serendipitous moments where like out of necessity is the mother of invention. It's like, we need a singer and we don't have one. And then he starts singing. It's like, well, problem solved. He's now the singer, So, but it did bring about. It reminded me that it's the back to your Miles Davis thing. It's the charisma of who's projecting the note and telling the narrative. That's why the Sweating Bullets works. I remember when he called me up. He goes. It was early. It was like 8 in the morning or something, 9 in the morning, and we're writing the kind of
right
final
about
bits.
now.
Yeah,
like
exactly. Of the countdown record, and he goes, Junior, check out this lyric, and I'm going, is he okay? And he's like, hello, me, meet the real me. None of me miss its way. And he starts singing it, and I'm going, is he high? That's fucking really good. I'm listening going, this is fucking brilliant. Fuck, is he okay? You know what I mean? I'm just thinking to myself, I'm having my own conversation. Hello, me, is he okay? And, but it was great because, look, we've been through all the drugs and recovery and all this stuff. And in a lot of ways, it tells that story of how we talk to ourselves, and you don't think you have to be a drug addict or a fucking, user of chemicals to have that conversation,
just a maniacal person.
Alone in your head. Looking at the world,
megalomaniac.
Yeah,
that's the word.
Well, whatever. I mean, it's his story, and it's. I've had people come up to me, or I'll get introduced to somebody, say, "Hey, it's David," from Megadeth, and people randomly go, "Oh yeah, you guys have that song, Hello Me," and I mean, the random like yuppies in a bar, I mean, of all songs that they could remember, it's that one, So. It's like, no, we're not Adele. It's the other Hello.
Yeah.
Man, right?
Well, maybe they were tripping on acid during law school, and they're like,
I thought Adele.
Yeah,
Adele was a cover, wasn't it, of you guys? Yeah, that's what it was.
Exactly.
That was Bob Dylan, but close. She covered Bob Dylan.
Hey man, it's a storied career. It's an adventure that I wouldn't want to have missed. I'm glad I'm a part of it, because I mean the stories only get, then you remember more stories as time goes on. And I always told Kiko and Dirk that. I said, well, guys, this is kind of a fucking weird gig, but the truth of it is when we get home and you're sitting around at the mom and Todd class with your kids or whatever you do, and you get home, I promise you, your stories will be better than anybody else's in the room, because it's like, we're literally living an unscripted reality TV show out here every day.
That is such a great way of describing the rock and roll life. I mean, it is. Yeah. No matter all the bullshit that happens. Yeah. You're just like, wow, great stories.
Yeah. Well, what were you doing? I was playing violin in front of tens of thousands of people every night for the last couple of months. What?
But also, you're
Christmas
right.
Music,
the personalities too, though, is just like what makes it, in a lot of ways. When you look back, the retrospect.
Normal people don't do what we do, and that's and that's for a reason. I always say people don't pay for ordinary; they pay for extraordinary. And there's something about every one of us that gets on that stage, as fucking crazy as we might be to do it, and get up there, and we morph into this other character. We put our game face on, and we become this other person for that moment, and that is part of who we are. And that's the one thing that I found when people, whether it's therapists or recovery community or whoever, they try to pull that person out of you to get rid of it. It's like, you can't get rid of that person. That is part of who we are.
So I wanted to talk to you about your new project with Jeff Scott Soto, Vacation in the Underworld, because I figured out a new reality television show that might help everyone get some calm. We need to get Yngwie Malmsteen, and we need to get Dave Mustaine, and we need to put them in a band, and they need to write an album together. And then you guys can be behind glass, you and Jeff, just watching them out Mustaine and Yngwie themselves to the whole public so they could see how many personalities are in that room.
Can we call it Vacation in the Underworld?
That's exactly where I was going, David. Thank you.
It's a pretty good name for a reality TV show now that you mention it. You have like dinosaurs, like Lost, right? It looks like Jurassic Park.
So can you speak to this? Because I know that this record was done for a while. I heard the new tune, and it's pretty merciless, dude. Like, I gotta tell you, it's what, as a Megadeth fan, I want to hear. How did this record come together?
So I was writing what would become essentially kind of the next Ellefson solo record, because I did one in 2018. It came out in 2019. Called Sleeping Giants. It had 3 new original tunes. We had like DMC from Run DMC. We had Daryl on there, and a few different guests. Chris Bolan, singer from Flotsam and Jetsam. A few different people came in. And then I had some material that I'd written many years ago that we put on there. That's why we called Sleeping Giants. They were just kind of these tunes that I thought were really good. David Glenn Isley from Jafria sang on some of it. John Bush. And then in 2020, we did a cover of a Post Malone song called Over Now. And then while we were on a tour in, I guess, late 2019 in Italy, we wrote the song Simple Truth. So these things were just laying the groundwork. And so I was writing the next record with Andy Martingelli, my guitar player who lives over in Verona, Italy.
He's amazing. I watch him every day. I want you to know, incredible. I follow him. He's incredible. He's such a nice guy. He's like the greatest guitarist on the planet. So talk about a dude to step up. Badass dude.
Gunslinger, just kick ass, can play anything you put in. He's a president of a music school. So he also puts together teaching curriculums, and he teaches, and as well as walks on stage and just shreds your face off.
Well, it makes sense because I follow him on Instagram, and we're friends on Facebook, and I don't remember how I became friends with him, but like if I see someone play really well or whatever, I might be a stalker and friend them. Right. And we started talking back and forth, and I'm like, who is this guy? Everything he posts is just clean and beautiful. So to all the Megadeth fans out there that listen to Marty and Kiko, those guys are great. Holy shit on Andy. Holy shit. I'm telling you as a fan. Holy shit, that guy's good.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I knew of Andy too. Kiko introduced me. We were driving into Bologna. This was probably 2016. I think it was right as Dystopia came out. And I'm friends with Cobra. From Cobra and the Lotus, right? And so either her or her mom, who managed her, gets me and says, we're looking for a guitar player. I say, hey, Kiko, you know anybody? And he goes, funny enough, Andy Martingelli, I'll hit him right now to come down. So he came to the show that night. And that was when I finally met Andy. I'd been seeing him online. So we met. He got the Cobra gig for a couple years, and we stayed in touch. And then when me and Frank Bello went over to Europe to tour with Slash, with Altitudes and Attitude, I knew I needed a guy to like kind of put it together. So I called Andy, and that's the thing with Andy. He's a one call. Hey, dude, I need a band. I need a thing. He just plugs it all in. He gets all the musicians. He books the gigs. He puts it all together. So he's amazing, even more so than just being a great guitar player. So as we were writing in early 2021, he and I were talking and about singers, and he said, he goes, dude, just call Jeff. Because I'd actually had Jeff sing on this song called Writing on the Wall. I picked up my bass one day, wrote this whole thing, put drums, guitars on it, wrote the lyric. And I, for like 5 years, I was trying to find someone to sing this damn lyric, this song. And so finally I just sent it to Jeff. I said, dude, can I PayPal you a couple of bucks and just sing on this fucking thing? I got to get it out of my head and out into reality. And he did. And it's great. And so Andy just said, dude, you'll love how he sings to your songs. Just send him some stuff. So we did. And that's how the collaboration started. Unfortunately, Jeff said, he goes, like, I don't want to just be the paid singer. I'd rather be part of this. Like, let's do this together. And hence Ellefson-Soto, it's our two names in the door. And there it is. And so between me, Andy, and Jeff, we put the record together. And, it's, I mean, look, in my opinion, I wish it would have come out in the spring, but, with vinyl order manufacturing delays, and I think Madonna and Adele gobbled up all the bandwidth for a year. so anyway, it's coming out now finally on October 7th. That's why we're rolling over to Italy next week. We're going to bang 3 shows in Milan, Turin, and Rome, because Jeff's going to be over there. I think he's finishing up a Sons of Apollo run. And then, as you know, Siobhán, you guys will all be out with TSO here coming up. So I said, look, we've got this moment where we can friggin' do just 3 shows. Let's just at least just go play some shows, because otherwise the record will come out, the moment will pass, and it could be a year from now before we ever play together again. So I said, I'm always about just grab the moment, let's just do it right now.
Yeah,
so
you are definitely, you're an inspiration for that. I mean, it's amazing how many things you do and just stuff that's always going on in the background in the midst of things you're already doing. And you have an incredible amount of resilience for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. I wake up and I go, what am I going to do today? All right, let's call Jeff Soto. All right, let's book flights to Italy. All right, let's go do, let me call Jeff Young. Let's go play Kings of Thrash. You know what I mean? So it's, it is. It's like we want to play and we want to work and we want to go do stuff. And, to me, it's all, all these things are all the little startup projects. And to me, that's the fun of it. To me, the joy of getting together for the first few times and putting something together is, we know that feeling, right? And it's such a great feeling to have that when it works and it's clicking and everybody's excited. And to me, that's my favorite part of putting bands together. Album 2 can be, okay, now we know each other. We kind of know what works, what doesn't. So we kind of work through that. And I think Mike Portnoy has it set. We were talking about Metal Allegiance, and he said, he goes, I find album 3 is the real acid test. If you can get to album 3, you'll probably make the distance, because album 1's fun. Album 2 can be a pain in the ass. Album 3 is like, all right, I accept you for who you are. Let's just get in the studio and make it work. And I think there's probably some truth to that.
That's definitely something that clearly you've. So it seems to me like you've expanded your portfolio, because you have, don't you? I talked to Drew, who directed Dwellers and is in the Lucid, and he told me you guys are also working on a new EP. Is that
we have an EP
thing
done.
too?
Yeah, we were working on that.
Do you sleep? Do you sleep?
Well, clearly not, because look at how early we're on this podcast. Mm-hmm. So no.
Ellefson coffee.
Exactly. I don't wake up hungover, so I guess that helps, but, so that
does help.
That does help, right? So that saves quite a few hours in a lifetime. I mean, it's like I said, it's kind of like just jumping from one to the next. After this, I'll probably practice some Ellefson-Soto stuff, and then I'm going in the studio to work on some other things later today. So, just the life of a musician. It's kind of like, well, I don't like to look at it like an 8-hour workday. I hate looking at music like we need to get to work. We got to work on this. I was like, now it just feels like work. It's like you took all the joy out of it, So to me, it's kind of like when inspiration strikes, it's like, hey, let's check out this thing I wrote, or hey, you want to get together and work on something, or like Benny, hey, dude, you want to fly out here and play on some tracks? It's, remember we set like 2 or 3 days aside. We ended up doing it all in like one day.
We did 5 songs. We did even more songs than we wanted. Like the electricity in the room, it was actually great because, I had, when you came down, you and Cory and my brother Brian, who's also a bass player, you were writing charts to the song. You were like, what's the best contrary motion for this? And it first off gave me a completely new perspective on you as a bass player, because I'm like, oh, wow, he really understands these tunes, and like the bass lines that you wrote were incredible. And of course, you brought down the modulus bass you used on Cryptic Writings. So I was like, immediately, it's between your hands and that bass, I'm like, oh my God, it's the exact bass sound I always dream of when I think of David Ellefson. But for me, I agree with you. When all that inspiration strikes, like, so Cory and myself and Siobhán were all just in Florida with Shannon Larkin working on an Apocalypse Blues revival record, and he did like 16-hour days. That guy doesn't even eat. He's like, what do you mean eating? It's like, it's 8:45, dude, and none of us have had breakfast. He's like, that's fine. We got more songs to do. But do you find that, like, the chemistry when you lose track of time, like you're in Vegas sitting at a machine?
Totally. It's so funny. Max Norman used to say that too when we were working on the Euthanasia record, because he was multitasking. He had a little newborn baby at home. He's building the studio out here in Phoenix. Then he's coming over to where we were rehearsing to listen to tunes. So he was wearing all these hats. And I remember we wanted to take like a lunch break or something, because, like in LA, even today, obviously you just call Uber Eats or something. They deliver it, right? But we're like, hey, can we take a break to get something to eat? He goes, man, food's overrated, but food's bad for you, man. You shouldn't eat so much, and he'd be like chiding on us like children. Stop eating, children. We must get to work,
Oh my gosh.
But no, you're right. It is. It's the best. The best music is when you lose track of time, both when you're listening to it and when you're creating it. Because how about when we do that? I drive to California a lot. It's like a 6-7 hour drive. Get my car. That's just lose myself on the I-10 freeway listening to music, and driving home, I always put out Judas Priest heading out to the highway, because as you're driving into Phoenix, that is the album cover, right? But remember, there's like that computer paper going to the mountain. It just takes me back to like 1980 Judas Priest, when I guess Rob Halford had moved here, and there was like this. It was just a great moment in rock and roll. Our songs were feel good. Metal wasn't dark; it was more kind of this upbeat.
You were just living after midnight in a major key.
Totally, and so I always put on that one on the way back into Phoenix, just because that's the picturesque. That's it, But it's the same thing when you just lose yourself and you go, oh my God, I just freaking 100 miles just flew by, and like, wow, I got to stop to pee and get something to eat. You know what I mean? So even listening to music, it should do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So inspiring. I need to get to work now.
You're in the studio, Siobhán. You have those really nice speakers. There's really no excuse for you not to be doing something masterful back there.
Well, no, but one thing I want to say I admire is that for the number of projects you have, you seem to be incredibly focused on each one, which I think is hard for some people. Like, you kind of have to have one main thing or something that's kind of like all inclusive, but you're doing so many different things. I mean, how do you compartmentalize that or plan that? Or maybe it's just organic.
That is a good question, because I think in the first 20 years with Megadeth, it was that. We had no time to focus on anything else. I mean, we were traveling. We would make these records and then do these 18-month world tours, which, the traveling alone would beat the hell out of you. I did go to school, though. I remember I was talking, I did a couple classes at the University of Phoenix on the Cryptic Writings tour, because, and to Dave's credit, he had actually started, he went to a class, and that got my attention. I'm like, wow, I never did get a college degree, and in my back of my mind, I'm going, God, what if the band ends and I have to go get a job, and I've never went to college. I'll be a loser. I'll be like sweeping the shop floor or like working at Jiffy Lube, I don't, fall from grace. Right. So I was like, I better go get my degree. So it is funny though. I did go to school, and University of Phoenix was pretty easy because it was these 5-week courses and there are all these adjunct professors. But I remember the second class I did, my professor actually lived in Tucson, like 2 hours from where I am here in Phoenix. I'm in Nagoya, Japan with my Apple laptop and my printer, doing my homework, go to the front. I had to go print out my homework and go to the front desk and pay like $87 to fax it to Tucson, right? So I'd get it in by homework deadline, right? And then, pack up, go across the street and go play whatever gig we were doing, but it was fun in the way that it was this right brain, left brain thing. And I think I got that from my dad, because my dad was pretty pragmatic on things, and yet I had a creative mind, and he really wanted to be an architect, but he had to take over running our family farm in Minnesota. So I could tell he was kind of frustrated creatively. And I think I learned after he died that's probably why he supported me going out and just doing my thing, like don't do drugs, don't fuck up, but like go have fun, and of course I did all three. But
as all good kids do.
Exactly. But, so I think, probably having some of that parental support of like, look, go rock, go have fun, be successful, but like keep your life together, that kind of thing, was certainly a narrative that I heard growing up. So that probably helps even kind of organize my life when it comes to music. It's like, like now wake up, podcast. Okay. After this, pick up the bass, Ellefson-Soto, go to the studio today, work on the other stuff, and kind of, compartmentalize time, because even in learning songs, which we've all done, both our own and other people's songs, it's kind of like homework. You can only absorb so much at a time, right? And then you have to get up, walk away, and clear your mind. Because sometimes then it's coming like doing a puzzle. And then you come back and you go, oh my God, here's the piece right here. I didn't see it. And then that's the little piece that goes, now that part makes sense. I was missing that one note right there, that one little passage. So, it's important to spend regular time on these things and be disciplined with it, but also not to the point, again, I hate that it becomes work. It's 4-letter word, play, not work, So, I'd rather go with playing music.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the companies you have, do you find that helps you break up and give you a fresh perspective on music if you kind of shift your brain to more the business side of things or outside of music, and then when you come back, you get a little bit of a bump? Probably,
yeah, the right brain, left brain thing, right? Whatever. Is it the left brain is the creative, and then the right is the sort of...
I believe so.
I'm not a doctor.
And I'm not 100% sure.
and what's funny about that is I go to, and if that's the case... We should probably look this up, or I'm sure some troll will call us out that we're wrong and make fun of us. But if left controls the right, the right for me is my picking hand. And I give credit to Fieldy from Korn for this, because I'll never forget when he said this in an interview, that our hand that picks and plucks the strings.
It's the right side of the brain that is supposedly the creative side.
Okay, so that would control this. Okay, so that would control this over here, right? So then the pragmatic left over here is our personality. Our signature sound comes from the hand that we sign our signature with, is
so
how we put it.
I found from healthline.com, the left brain is thinking in words, sequencing, linear thinking, mathematics, facts, and logic, whereas the right brain is feelings, visualization, imagination, intuition, rhythm, holistic thinking, arts. So I feel like both sides of my brain have damage.
Yeah. So if the left is doing that would make sense, because that's the sort of logistical side, right? If you're picking and plucking with this hand. I just thought that was a great analogy from Fieldy, though, that it's the hand we sign our name, that we sign our signature with, gives us our signature sound. That it isn't over here and all the noodly stuff. It's this hand right here, which is the very kind of deliberate, organized. That's the one that gives that sound. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if you other string
How about you,
players would
Siobhán?
agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree on violin for sure. I think the sound comes from the bow, the bow arm, and where you approach the string. I mean, this is all acrobatics for the most part. There's some tone in it, but the personality certainly comes from the right hand, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. Right. You have the long sweeps or these short, and and obviously they work together. But it's your real lyrical voice kind of comes from,
and dynamics come from that, for guitar, bass, all that stuff, and strings. So like that's for me, when I hear someone, their dynamics give away their skill more than, a lot of people can move their fingers really fast And
Right.
that's like kind of the thing in high school. You find that like that one kid that can chromatically shred up and down the neck, but then you put him in a band and you go, all right, go back
Well, it's
to
funny
playing
you
by
say
yourself,
that.
doing your exercises.
We were working on the song "No Exit," which features David for Lost Symphony and also Jeff Loomis. But we were working with Jimmy Bell, and he used to always say, "I can't do those fancy tricks like the sweep picking and all that. All I could do is the old fashioned just picking." But he basically, so where most people are using these techniques that make it easier, so you can just go. Brrr. He's actually old school chicken picking, and it sounds so ferocious. And we were like, Jimmy, that's why you're literally the best. And he's a lefty, which there's something weird about lefties that are really that good. It's incredible.
So he played lefty like this, right? Not right. He played lefty, so that means he would sign his name with his left hand, right?
Correct.
Which is why he had this bizarre,
it's so crazy.
picking detail. Yeah.
I actually took my phone and a GoPro and I put it near his picking hand, because if you watch a guy like Steve Morse, he does the same thing where he does like these weird economy things that if you like, it's like watching a hummingbird. You know what I mean? And Jimmy Bell, the fact that he could do these arpeggios as fast as a guy like Jeff Loomis by actually physically picking it, tremolo picking, it's as absolutely flawlessly as he does, because that's the thing is he's so meticulous in his statements that he says. You don't miss any of it. It's not like all those guys that are flubbing it. And that to me is so impressive versus just like, look at this technique I learned today. It's good, but it's like, it's so fast and it allows you to cheat. Whereas like a guy like Jimmy's like, I don't know to take an elevator. I just go up every single step of the Sears Roebuck Tower to get to my office on the top floor every day.
And also walks 12 miles a day or something crazy like that.
He does walk 12 miles a day because he's a...
very.
He lost a bunch of weight.
We all are a little bit.
He looks great.
Well, so the same thing with tone, because I was the guy growing up in Minnesota because I grew up on a farm, and my dad would give me, a building of a shed on the farm to rehearse in, and he helped me buy a PA, and I'd study all these statistics about a Gauss speaker versus a JBL and a what is it, BGW power amp versus a Crown. And, I really studied all the details and the statistics, right? So once I started buying professional sound reinforcement equipment, because growing up in the Midwest, we had to have our own sound and lights and trailer and crew. And, you had to have everything. That's when I got to LA and I'm going, walk into like the Troubadour or the Whiskey. It's like, you guys got it so easy. Just walk in, plug and play, sound and lights are here. It's like, no wonder they make you guys pay to play. You should. They pay for everything here, So, but so I remember buying it, and and again, for a PA, bass, of course, sounds nice and big and round, and it's so cool. And then I remember I'd get with the band and go, man, check out the bass tone. And as soon as they started playing, the bass just vanished. This very hi-fi bass sound. It was transparent. You couldn't hear it anymore. And I realized that's why people were playing through like SVTs and 810 speakers, because they had this really kind of, there was like a real angriness to it and a kind of a gnarliness to the tone. And that's what made it sit well inside the kick drum. And that in those days, it was mostly Marshalls, so Marshalls eat up a ton of mid-range. And so that's why I got my tone to get down inside the kick and then kind of scoop up around the Marshalls and put that point and that bit of that click up on the top. That's what made me survive in a Marshall world, is to have that. So, which, really, if you look at an equalizer on an amp, it's the California Smile, right? It's it's like boosted, boosted bass, scooped mids, accentuated top, you know what I mean? So they call that the California Smile on a graphic equalizer. So that's, if you visualize what my tone is, that's basically what it is.
I call that the dime bag.
Is out. Yeah,
because that band, but that's one of those things as an audio engineer, when people say, we want to sound like Pantera, it doesn't work, because Rex Brown, his bass playing is right in the middle. He's like that Lemmy fucking loud in your face, whereas Dimebag was all he had a 215 cab as a guitarist, which is ridiculous, all that low stuff. And then if you listen to Vinnie Paul, his drums are all highs and lows with no mids. So the bass and the vocals are all mids, but it only works in that band. Because, they're all have such weird sounds that together it makes Pantera, but by itself, it's like you would never have. I used to always do the smiley face on the guitar, which is the worst thing ever. And I remember one time we had a record guy come down and we told him we couldn't hear ourselves. We had like 10,000 watts of PA. He's like, yeah, dude, that's because you have so much frequency cancellation going on. He's like, why are all your mids turned down? And I'm like, but Pantera, and he turned up all of our mids, turned down the volume on everything, and readjusted it, and it's like, okay, I hate this sound, but I could hear myself, and it's like, oh, it's Van Halen again in here.
You know what's interesting? Last week I went out to go see the stadium tour with Motley, Def Leppard, Poison, and Joan Jett. And what was funny, it's funny to see the jeans and t-shirts version of Poison, right? Because back when we were jeans and t-shirts, they were all the flamboyant thing. But, they're a really good band. And the bass and drums, in my opinion, carried the thrust of it, especially in a big stadium setting like that. Like that really was that. And then CeCe, I think, since he got clean, he's a great guitar player. He's always been really good. His tone's really good. His playing is really come of age. I remember seeing him. Me and Rat Skates, who was in Overkill, went up to go see him. I remember it was Rat and Poison. And we were joking, there's these two old school thrash metal guys going up to see the hair metal movement, but it's a great night out, man. These guys have fun songs. There's people are there to have nothing but a good time, right?
Well, I have to ask about that because first off, Poison and Joan Jett and Def Leppard are all phenomenal bands. Bands that Def Leppard's so good, like you understand why they've been around for 40 years.
They were like, it's funny because then Motley comes out and their show is great, of course, and what they do. And,
is it? No, I want to talk about that because I can't handle Vince Neil.
It was great.
I can't handle it.
You know what? Vince sang great. He wasn't doing let the audience sing. He really.
How deaf are you?
And he sang that like Vince. To me, Vince looked like an entertainer who was showing up, going to work, and delivering.
Really?
The goods, man. I mean, yeah, 100%.
Wow.
I thought they were great. And then Def Leppard closed tonight here in Phoenix, and of course they are like sonic royalty. I mean, they just sound amazing. They sing great. They've got such a polished sound about them that's very enjoyable to listen to, especially after a whole day of, having rock and roll pummeling your ears. To me, Def Leppard was kind of the nice cherry on top, as a way to finish the night off. So no, I thought it was great. And look, it's kind of a big four of, of that genre, even though I guess if you really had a big four, it'd be Quiet Riot, Rat, Motley, and maybe Dokken, you know what I mean? But in a way it was, it was cool. It was that thing. So
thank you
anything
so much.
You want to let people know about right now before you hop off? Like what should people be paying attention to?
Well, look, obviously Ellefson-Soto record coming out October 7th. We're heading to Italy to go do our shows here in a couple of weeks. We've got Kings of Thrash coming up, which is me and Jeff Young, who played on the So Far So Good So What record, and our special guest, Chris Poland. And we're going out and playing the Killing Is My Business and So Far So Good So What records in their entirety mid-October. So October 12th to 15th, we're going to go do that. And beyond, now people are calling for that. And then I have my record with the guys in Dieth. We're going to be making an announcement about that. It's my Polish death metal band. And
heard it. That's also relentless.
It's great. It's very cool. It's super good. So so it's kind of like I got nice. And then we have a new Lucid EP we're going to be dropping before the end of the year. So those are my big four. Those are my four pillars of.
Don't you have
Ellefson
artwork coming out with like lights and things?
Yes, yeah, the base luminosity thing. Yeah, thank you for that. That's coming out here in a couple of weeks.
What is that? Explain that to the dumb here before you leave.
The base, and basically, it's weird how I wore a glove that had these electrodes on it. So as you move and play, it creates. They capture it with the camera, just photography, and they capture this, and it basically prints onto a digital canvas. That you then buy the print. It's very cool. It's very clever. Yeah.
Very cool.
It's yeah.
So where is the best place for people to find all of your things? Like, do you want to share a website or one central location?
DavidEllefson.com. Kind of everything pushes through there. My Facebook.com/David Ellefson. Those are really the two places to find it all.
We love you, David. Thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Great to see you.
We'll talk
Thank you so much, David.
Take it easy, David.
See ya.